This is a Rattle and Hum Sports podcast for Thursday, September the 19th, 2013. I'm Bryan Houston. Cowboys get ready to take on the St. Louis Rams this weekend. And with us right now to break that down, talk a little bit about the postmortem from the Chiefs game last week, and also to preview the Rams game this weekend is our Rattle and Hum Sports contributor for the Cowboys, Matthew Postins. How you doing, Matthew?
Fine, Bryan. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Good to have you on as always. Let's go, before we get to looking forward to the Rams, now that we've had a few days to digest the mess in Kansas City, a lot of criticism, of course, aimed at the Cowboys offensive staff and all this new emphasis on play calling and how it was going to be so much different. And the Cowboys ended up running the ball about as much as they did last year. It seemed like for every 10 passes they throw, they carry the ball one time. So having had a chance to digest this, absorb it a bit, your take on the Cowboys offense after that game against the Chiefs?
Well, it's been a lot of accountability around Valley Ranch, or at least talk of accountability this week with the running game. Nobody seems real happy with how they ran the football against Kansas City. Nobody seems real happy about the balance, or the imbalance, rather. The offensive coordinator, the new play caller, Bill Callahan, told reporters today, I need to call more running plays. Jason Garrett said on Wednesday, we've got to run the football more effectively. DeMarco Murray has said it. Tony Romo has said it. It seems like everybody's cognizant of it, but nobody's really offering up a whole lot of solutions as to how that's going to happen. When Romo talked on Wednesday, he talked about how he has checked out of some running plays and into pass plays because that's what the defense is giving him. He said, I'd be crazy not to take a single matchup on the outside with Dennis Bryan on the cornerback, and there's some logic to that. But the fact is, if you watch that game, especially in the second half on Sunday, there were opportunities for the Cowboys to grind the clock, to move the chains, to get first downs, using the run, and because of a wide range of factors, starting with the Chiefs' defense and probably ending with just the plays that were called, they didn't do it. And I think that the realization, or you have to hope the realization around Valley Ranch this week is that they understand that they've got to run the football better starting this week.
Now, the other thing that came out of this week is a lot of consternation about DeMarco Murray, who, quite frankly, in the ball game last Sunday, looked really slow to the hole. When you looked at him compared to the way Lance Dunbar in his one carry just exploded and had a little zip to the hole, DeMarco Murray just does not look like the back that we saw a couple of years ago when he burst on the scene for the Cowboys and looked like he was going to be the future of the running game.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell. If he hasn't complained of any injuries. He's not on the injury report, so obviously he's healthy. When we talked on Sunday after the game, I think I made the point that it's distinctly possible that because of the issues up front, specifically trying to figure out who the guards are going to be in this offense, that maybe he's a little tentative going to the hole. It could be, given the injuries that he's had the last couple of years, maybe he has lost half a step in terms of speed. Nobody has said anything to the effect that Murray isn't as fast as he used to be, or isn't hitting the hole like he should be. But when you watch him on tape and you watch him in games, there's definitely something that isn't right. And if the Cowboys, they're hoping it's tentativeness. They're hoping that it's just DeMarco Murray getting used to a new blocking scheme and a couple of new blockers up front, because if we get further into the season and realize that it isn't, then the Cowboys, even if they correct the offensive line issues, if DeMarco Murray is not running the way we're used to seeing him run, that's a problem.
Okay. Let's look ahead now to the Cowboys game against the St. Louis Rams, another team a lot like the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that on paper, when you look at it, you would think the Cowboys would be big favorites in this ball game and ought to have a pretty easy time against a team that was one in the lower echelon last year of the NFL. But we've come to learn that you can't take anything for granted with these Cowboys. Tell us what you know about the Rams, first of all.
Well, you know what? They're a team that is beginning to mirror their head coach and Jeff Fisher. And Jeff Fisher's a defensive guy. Everybody saw what he did in Tennessee for all the years that he was there. He came up on the defensive side, played for the Bears in the 80s, played on that Super Bowl team. So that's the kind of identity that he likes to get for his football team. They play the run extremely well, and that's going to be a problem the Cowboys are going to have to account for on Sunday. Right now, the Rams are 6th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed. They've got a very good front four. They know how to rush the passer. They know how to get to the ball carrier. Jason Garrett was very complimentary and very respectful of their front four when he talked to reporters on Monday. He said that's kind of where their defense starts, are those guys up front. So the Cowboys are going to have to block better on Sunday if they have any expectation of running the ball better and of protecting Tony Romo.
Okay, and of course, by seeing the Rams, we get to see a guy that Big 12 fans are used to seeing, in Sam Bradford. Talk a little bit about his progress as a young quarterback in this NFL. Is he the real deal, or is he another one of these guys that came in with huge fanfare and is going to flame out early?
Well, you know what? I think we find out this year if he really is the real deal or not. He had a very good freshman campaign, actually kept the Rams in the playoff race till the very end of the season that one year. And then last year, the whole team, not just Sam Bradford, they took a step back. The Rams went to great pains to get him weapons this year, to get some people around him that could help him move the football, beginning with Tavon Austin, the wide receiver out of West Virginia, who's had a solid start to his NFL career. Everything that I've heard coming out of St. Louis says that Bradford looks a little more mature than he did last year. Looks like he's making better decisions so far. He's taking advantage of Austin's speed on the outside. Right now, you look at Bradford's numbers, and he's putting up pretty solid numbers right now. So I think we find out this year if he really is the real deal. But so far, he seems to be reacting well to the changes they made offensively. They still don't have a great running game behind them, but they've got 2 or 3 guys that they can, move through to run the football 10, 15 times. I think they'll ultimately miss Steven Jackson at some point this year, but they haven't missed him yet.
Which still blows my mind that Steven Jackson is not with his team.
Well, it blows my mind to a certain degree, but you know what? He put in his time with that Rams team for a long, long time. He was a good soldier in that franchise for several years, and moving on to Atlanta, it gives him an opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl ring. Remember, this is a guy that a lot of Cowboys fans wanted the Cowboys to draft when he came out of college. Parcells' first year with the Cowboys, so he's been in the league quite some time. He's paid his dues, and as somebody who appreciates pro football, you want to see a guy like Steven Jackson who really never gave the Rams trouble, always came to work every day ready to play. You like to see him have an opportunity to play for a ring, but definitely he leaves a big void in the backfield. They're running guys like Daryl Richardson and Isaiah Peed back there. Richardson's been solid the last couple of weeks, but he's also banged up this week, so Cowboys fans may not see him on Sunday.
Now, the thought before this schedule started playing out was that the Cowboys really need to win the ball games where they seem to have a clear edge at quarterback. Romo, in most quarters, was considered to be a better quarterback than Alex Smith, but the Cowboys didn't win last Sunday. Romo, by all measures, should be the better quarterback on the field this weekend against the Rams. But is he? I mean, are we going to see an edge there this week? Can the Cowboys take advantage of his experience and his ability?
One would hope so. I mean, the Rams are still a relatively young team, especially on the offensive side of the football. I mean, you look at their skill guys, and most of those guys haven't logged more than 3 years in the NFL. So there's a definite advantage there in terms of experience. I think it really boils down to whether or not the Cowboys run the football better this weekend. I mean, Romo has shown an ability, at least in the first 2 games, of minimizing his mistakes. He hasn't thrown a pick yet, although admittedly he got lucky on one in that game last week against Kansas City. But he hasn't made a whole lot of mistakes. He's played within himself. You could argue that they've made some very conservative play calls, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But one of the big knocks and one of the big asks of Tony this year was to make fewer mistakes, and so far he's made them. And I think that a running game, an actual consistent running game, would mean so much more to him than it would to some other quarterbacks like a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning, because I just don't think that Romo's in that class, because as we saw on that last drive last week in Kansas City, he doesn't always make the right decisions, doesn't always make the right throws, doesn't always make the best throws when it's really, really necessary for him to do it.
And I'm not still convinced that he's healthy enough, because he looks so hampered and limited with his throws, especially when he's trying to throw to the left this past weekend against the Chiefs. Are those ribs any better this week?
Well, he said on Wednesday that he might have to get another shot, I can't remember if it was lidocaine or cortisone, I'm not sure what it was, but he had a shot to dull the pain before
tequila.
the game in Kansas City. Yeah, maybe it was tequila, I don't know. You saw those last few throws, you have to wonder. It sounds like he will get another shot before the game on Sunday. He says that shot lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. So you get to the fourth quarter of that football game, and he might have been feeling a little bit of pain in those ribs, residual effect from the injury in week 1. He says he's okay. I guess you have to take him at his word, but certainly it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was feeling a little discomfort last Sunday in Kansas City toward the end of that game, and very well could be feeling some more discomfort toward the end of this game on Sunday.
All right, speaking of injuries, what about the status of Anthony Spencer and Des Bryant?
Well, they've both worked out this week, although neither one of them actually worked out on Wednesday, and it sounds like that was by design. They both were limited participants in practice on Thursday. Jason Garrett hasn't given us any reason to believe that either one of them won't play on Sunday, so barring a setback, they should be on the field. Morris Claiborne's still practicing. DeMarcus Ware is still practicing. The only player on the team who isn't practicing right now is Ernie Sims, the backup linebacker, who's still out with the groin injury and looks like he'll probably be out for a second straight week.
All right, and then let's talk about the lines. I understand that the Cowboys worked out defensive tackle Drake Nevis, who was cut by the San Diego Chargers, an LSU Tiger, so I'm always interested in those guys. You would think the shape that the Cowboys' inner defensive line is in, with the lack of depth, that this guy, if he can play at all, can help the Cowboys.
Yeah, they're looking for any help they can get on the defensive line right now. I think they were a little worn out toward the end of that football game. Jason Hatcher's playing extremely well right now, but he's also playing a lot of snaps, obviously, because Jay Ratliff is on the PUP right now. So, shuffling guys around a little bit. It looks like they're going to try and perhaps use Landon Cohen a little bit on the outside, even though he is definitely bigger than the types of ends Monty Kiffin's used in the past. It sounds like they might try and use George Selby inside a little bit now that Spencer's a little more healthy. They might put together some packages where they use 3 speed rushers on the field as opposed to 2. But certainly it sounds like they're doing more mixing and matching now that Spencer's healthy, and just trying to find the right combination of guys that can get things done up front. And, admittedly, they've done a good job of rushing the passer the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, you look at their sack numbers, they've got, I think, 7 sacks through 2 games, and that's not necessarily indicative of, a good or bad pass rush. But if you watch that game on Sunday against Kansas City, they were definitely flying around frequently around Alex Smith. They did a good job of getting to the quarterback. That's not one of the real pressing issues right now with this football team. They're doing a good job of getting pressure on the quarterback. I think it's more about they were left on the field a little bit too long on Sunday, not necessarily because of time of possession, but because the offense just could not get into a rhythm late in the football game and keep it and stay on the field.
Okay, and then switch gears to look at the offensive line. Some interesting things going on there. Mackenzie Bernardo taking snaps at center.
Well,
What? He can't play guard, so let's try him at center? Is that how this is working?
Well, they played Bernardo at center a couple of times last year, but that was out of necessity. because both Phil Costa and Ryan Cook were hurt. The Cowboys have been talking all the off season and even here in the early regular season about wanting to get the three best guys they can get on the field in terms of that guard center guard combination. Last week they were talking about using Waters and Bernardo together and benching Leary, even though they said Leary was doing a good job for them after the first week of the season. What they ended up doing was they ended up rotating Bernardo and Waters at that other guard spot and left Leary in the game. Theoretically, what the Cowboys must be thinking about is if you use Bernardo at center, then obviously you're going to slide Frederick over to one of the guard positions, most likely the left side. And then what do you do on that right side? Do you keep Leary there, or do you bring Waters in, or do you rotate the two of them? I think they're looking at options right now because obviously their inability to run the football last week is a huge, glaring item that they have to cross off their list. They have to run the football better if they have any chance of being a successful football team this year. And they've got to find the right combination of guys, and they've got to find them fast.
Okay. And another interesting move, Will Allen right now standing on the sidelines watching J.J. Wilcox work with the starters at safety in practice. What do you know about that?
Well, it happened today, and it was a bit of a surprise because, I'll be honest with you, I think Will Allen's played very well the first 2 weeks of the season. I mean, that's not to me, it's not really, the safety play really hasn't been a huge problem, although they have had some issues with defending passes over the middle. But I think that's more just, getting used to the cover two scheme. One would argue that with Allen's experience in the cover two, that shouldn't be an issue for him. But it could be, perhaps they feel as if Wilcox's speed and overall youth might allow him to get to the football a little bit faster than Will Allen. Allen didn't talk much today about the fact that Wilcox was taking first-team reps. It could be that they feel like Wilcox is close to being ready to be a heavier contributor in the defensive side from special teams and a few nickel packages. It could be a lot of different things. I think nobody went into this season thinking that Will Allen was going to be the long-term starter at that position. But I think certainly I felt like he would be the starter for most of the year. I don't know if this signals Wilcox being a starter on Sunday, but it sounds like the Cowboys want to use him more on Sunday against St. Louis in an effort to try and figure out if maybe he is the guy that should be starting at that position.
Okay, so based on all the homework you've done, how do you see this ball game playing out on Sunday?
Well, I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be one of those games where the Cowboys are going to blow them out or the Rams are going to blow out the Cowboys. It's going to be a close football game. It seems like those are the only kinds of games the Cowboys play these days. You look at that Rams record and you think to yourself, well, the Cowboys should be able to beat them. But, the fact of the matter is the Rams are a much better football team than they were last year. They're really buying into what Jeff Fisher is installing there in St. Louis. And this could end up being a very dangerous football team here as the year goes on. And, perhaps the most dangerous division in the NFC, if not the NFL, when you consider the 49ers and the Seahawks are both sitting there, two of the best teams in the NFL. The Rams could be a definite dark horse for a postseason berth based on what they have on their roster. And Arizona's not an easy out anymore either. So that's a very difficult division. The Rams are a very difficult team, and I think the Cowboys are going to have their hands full. I think ultimately being at home, that will probably serve the Cowboys well, and they'll probably win the game. But I know there's been a lot of talk about the fact that Murray had his franchise record rushing game against the Rams 2 years ago. I want to stress, this is not the same Rams team we saw 2 years ago when they came to Dallas.
No, it's a long way from that. Obviously, he has a much better head coach now, somebody that's large and in charge there. And Jeff Fisher, there was a lot of talk at some point that he might be coaching the Cowboys. That never did come to fruition, but hey, it certainly seemed like it was a possibility, and it would have been, I think, a really good move by Jerry Jones. But we know proven head coaches just don't seem to come here. So
for whatever reason.
Yeah, imagine that. Okay, well, so anyway, let's just talk about the worst case scenario, just to throw this out there. What kind of mushroom cloud would you anticipate coming out over Jerry World if the Cowboys were to lose this ball game, what seems to be a very winnable ball game against a St. Louis Rams team, knowing there are much tougher teams on their schedule than the Chiefs were last week and the Rams are this week? What kind of disaster would that create?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think we all know that Jerry is a relentlessly optimistic person. First of all, I'd say no changes in the coaching staff, no head coaching changes. But I wonder if we have another week like we had this week, where the Cowboys don't run the football very well, don't run the football much, and lose. I wonder if maybe you take a peek behind the curtain and maybe Jason Garrett exerts himself more in terms of play calling. I mean, obviously he is involved in the game plan quite a bit because it is his offense basically. But, Bill Callahan's the guy calling the plays. I wonder if they have another week like they had against Kansas City, against St. Louis. I wonder if maybe people start questioning whether or not Bill Callahan's the right guy to be calling the plays. That's early to pull the trigger. And, Jason Garrett is not the type of guy to play that out in public or even say it in public. But you have to wonder if that starts becoming something people are talking about locally outside of Valley Ranch, if not inside the doors of Valley Ranch.
All right, very good. Well, Matthew, of course, as always, we enjoyed visiting with you. And we will see how things play out this Sunday. The drama never seems to end at Valley Ranch. There's no question about that. But we will check back in with you after the ball game on Sunday and get a breakdown of how things went. And hopefully, for Cowboy fans, it will be a much better outcome than what we saw against the Kansas City Chiefs this past weekend, who, by the way, as we do this podcast, right now the Chiefs are leading the Philadelphia Eagles by 10 points with about 3.5 minutes to go. So it looks like Kansas City is going to be the bane of the NFC East's existence.
I'll tell you what, I think I told you this last week. I think I've said it before. 3 years from now, the Philadelphia Eagles will regret firing Andy Reid. They will regret it.
Probably so. Probably so. Matthew, thank you very much as always, and we'll talk to you after Sunday's ball game.
All right. Thanks, Bryan.
All right. Matthew Postins, of course, covering the Dallas Cowboys for Rattle and Hum Sports. This is a Rattle and Hum Sports podcast. I'm Bryan Houston. Thanks very much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.